Marcel sighed as three laughing young women swerved into the parking spot he'd been patiently waiting for. Later at the bar, their mockery continued when they spotted him, snickering about how older people should just stay home. What these women couldn't possibly know was exactly who they had chosen to disrespect. Their smug smiles vanished when they saw him again that night. The downtown parking lot was a chaotic maze on Friday evening as Marcel circled row after row of filled spaces. Just as he was considering giving up, he noticed a middle-aged woman loading shopping bags into her trunk. Relief washed over him as he positioned his car strategically, turning on his blinker to signal his intention. This was standard parking lot etiquette, a silent agreement between drivers. The woman finally entered her vehicle and backed out slowly. Marcel prepared to pull forward, but in that split-second window of opportunity, a sleek white convertible suddenly accelerated past him. The car swerved sharply and slid into the vacant spot with a screech of tires, cutting him off completely. Marcel sat stunned for a moment, his turn signal still blinking uselessly. Three young women emerged from the convertible, laughing and adjusting their designer outfits as if they'd pulled off some clever maneuver. They couldn't have missed his car waiting there with the blinker on. This was deliberate. Gathering his composure, Marcel lowered his window and called out to them. He explained calmly that he had been waiting for several minutes for that specific spot, his signal clearly indicating his intention. The women paused and exchanged glances between themselves. Instead of acknowledging their rudeness, they erupted into synchronized laughter. The tallest one told him that he should be faster next time if he wanted the spot. Her friends giggled in agreement as they sauntered away toward the entrance of the popular bar district, not bothering to look back at the man they had inconvenienced. Marcel eventually found a spot nearly 15 minutes later, much farther from his destination. By the time Marcel entered the trendy bar, it was packed with the Friday night crowd. He scanned the room, looking for a place to sit, when he spotted the three women from the parking lot. They had somehow secured one of the best tables in the house, right in the center where everyone could see them. As Marcel walked past their table toward the bar, one of the women nudged her friends. She remarked loudly, "Look who finally made it," ensuring her voice carried over the music. Another one chimed in that this was why older people should just stay home since they couldn't keep up. The third woman nearly spilled her drink from laughing too hard at her friend's comments. The sting of their mockery was unexpected. Marcel wasn't even particularly old, in his early 40s and well-dressed. But to these women, anyone over 30 apparently qualified as elderly. Rather than engage with their immaturity, he simply ordered his drink and found a seat at the bar, where he could observe the room. From his vantage point, Marcel couldn't help but overhear fragments of the women's animated conversation. They were discussing an exclusive rooftop party happening later that night. Their excitement was palpable as they debated what to wear and when to arrive. One woman lamented how difficult it had been to get on the guest list. She explained that she and her friends had been trying for weeks to secure invitations. As Marcel listened, a slow smile spread across his face. He recognized an opportunity unfolding before him, one that these women could never have anticipated. What were the chances that they had chosen to disrespect the one person who could affect their evening plans so dramatically? He was actually the owner of the building where this exclusive party was being held. As the property owner, he had complete control over events hosted there, including the highly coveted guest list that these women were so desperate to be on. Without drawing attention to himself, Marcel took out his phone and stepped away to a quieter corner. He described them and their white convertible to his manager and instructed him that when they arrived, they should be politely but firmly turned away, regardless of what excuse or explanation they offered. His manager confirmed the instructions without question. He returned to his seat, occasionally glancing at the oblivious trio who continued taking selfies and bragging loudly about their upcoming evening plans. Around midnight, the women finally gathered their belongings and left the bar, chattering excitedly about the exclusive party they were about to attend. Marcel waited a few minutes before following them out, making sure to keep his distance. 20 minutes later, he emerged onto the rooftop where the party was in full swing. Local celebrities mingled with influencers and business elites, creating exactly the exclusive atmosphere the event promoters had promised. Marcel positioned himself near the entrance, partially concealed by a decorative plant arrangement. From this vantage point, he had a perfect view of the velvet rope, and the bouncer checking guests against the digital list. He didn't have to wait long before the three women approached, confidence radiating as they strutted toward the entrance in their carefully selected outfits. The tallest one, who had been most dismissive in the parking lot, stepped forward first and gave her name to the bouncer. He checked his tablet methodically, scrolling up and down before looking up with a frown. He shook his head and informed her that her name wasn't on the list. Confusion spread across the women's faces as they exchanged worried glances. The second woman tried her name, then the third, but the result was the same. They began to argue, insisting there must be a mistake. As their voices grew louder and more desperate, they demanded to speak to whoever was in charge of the guest list. They couldn't believe they were being denied entry to the event they had boasted about all evening. This was the moment Marcell had been waiting for. He stepped forward calmly, approaching the growing commotion. He asked if there was a problem here, his voice measured and professional. The women turned toward him, and he watched as recognition slowly dawned on their faces. Before they could respond, the bouncer addressed him with immediate respect and deference. He informed Mr. Johnson that these women were insisting they should be allowed in, but they weren't on the list. Mr. Johnson? One woman repeated the name, her face noticeably paling as the connection became clear in her mind. Marcell confirmed with a pleasant smile that yes, he was indeed Marcell Johnson, the owner of this building and the organizer of tonight's event. The women stood frozen in place as the implications of their earlier rudeness came crashing down upon them all at once. They had mocked and disrespected the very person who controlled access to the party they had been desperate to attend for weeks. With perfect composure, Marcell reminded them of their earlier encounter. He mentioned that earlier today, they had taught him a lesson about being faster. Now he was teaching them one about respect, how it costs nothing to give, but its absence can cost opportunities they never even knew existed. The transformation in the women's demeanor was immediate and complete. Their previous arrogance evaporated instantly as they began apologizing profusely. Gone were the smug expressions and dismissive attitudes, replaced by genuine embarrassment and regret. Marcell acknowledged their apologies with a simple nod. He mentioned that the party next weekend was for local business owners, and if they were genuinely sorry, perhaps they could volunteer at the Children's Hospital fundraiser his company was hosting on Sunday. This wasn't just about teaching them a lesson, it was about giving them a chance to demonstrate that they had learned from it. As he walked away to rejoin his guests, he overheard one of them whisper to the others, asking if they had seriously just mocked the owner of the biggest event venue in town over a parking spot. Marcell smiled to himself as he disappeared into the crowd. And what about you? Have you ever encountered someone who had no idea who you really were when they chose to be disrespectful?